Hello, everyone, and greetings. It's been a long time. I've been busy building up a few businesses and transitioning from full time military service into civilian life and now transitioning into a mild form of retirement. I've been wanting to start up the blog again, and here it is, and probably no time too soon, as so much is going on, so much has changed since the last episode, which was episode 53. This is going to be episode 54, and this one impacts all of us directly. Now, maybe it's been a long time since you were last with me, or maybe you've never seen any of my episodes previously, but basically I cover topics that I think are sort of secrets to secrets or mysteries, and I try to break them down in a way that makes sense to me, then hopefully it makes sense to you. This one is going to be huge, and probably if you if you decide to make it so, it might be something that impacts you directly in a super positive way. Because what's coming is absolutely unavoidable. There's no way to get out of the way of this thing, but there is a way to benefit from it, and we're going to get into that pretty soon. Today's episode, episode 54, is Global Power Shift. And we're going to be talking about not just, political and military power, but the real power, the financial power, and how it's changing right now, has been for a few months, and very, very likely you might be one of the many and not one of the few that know what's going on. So that's why I'm breaking down this video, and I'm also going to show you how potentially you can benefit from this power shift before it actually fully takes place. So welcome back. Like, share, and subscribe, of course, and enjoy. Episode 54, Secrets and Mysteries, Global Power Shift. What if I told you that for the first time in the history of humanity, that the entire global economic system will be based on a single form of transaction? And I don't even mean a single form of currency, but what I mean is a singular way to do business. Well, that's what's happening. On November 22nd of this year, so in just a few days from the making of this video, the new global banking standard, also known as 20022, will be implemented. And that means that if your bank or economic or fiscal system isn't compliant with that regulation and that standard, then you are out of the global economic system. Conversely, if you're compliant, you are in the global economic system. And while people will say, well, there's been a global economy for a long time, well, not quite like this. And I will show you why. Imagine a world, if you will, where the old form of doing business in dollars or rubles or bricks or any other form of currency is not only made much more efficient, but also the entire global economy can be conducted on a single ledger very quickly. Well, why is that important? I'm going to get into that, and this is really where it starts to get to be very interesting. To understand why the changes that are coming are so huge, we have to understand a little bit about how they're done currently. Currently, the SWIFT system is the means by which large sums of money are commonly transferred from, say, buyer to seller or investor to investment organization or bank to bank. There are other means by which to do this, but currently SWIFT is the Cadillac, the gold standard. And the problem with SWIFT is that it's too slow for modern rates of exchange when compared to cryptocurrency. We'll get back to cryptocurrency in a minute. SWIFT currently takes about 6 days on average, and they can charge up to 6%, sometimes more, of the total transaction. So if you're Brazil and you're selling a bunch of sugar cane to, say, India, and you want to get that transaction done in a way that goes from your currency to their currency, back maybe to a US currency or BRICS currency or whatever currency, that takes a little time, and every single time you switch from currency to currency, there's an additional period of time and an additional fee. So it takes a long time, and it's expensive, and it just doesn't travel at the speed of the 21st century. And that is why the system is changing. To get a handle on this, the first thing you really need to understand is that for the past dozen years, cryptocurrency has been trying to sneak in, the back door, come in the side door, or just sort of take over from, eminent domain in a sense, to try to take over the global economic system and the means by which wealth is transferred to some scale. Some people imagined it would be complete. Some people just imagined it would be a side currency thing where everything from, people looking to have their transactions be secured and their wealth be protected from governments, as well as people looking to do very nefarious things, were using cryptocurrency and promoting cryptocurrency, and it was very much the Wild West. That is about to change. The conflict existed, and it still exists to a very small degree, between the old system and what is now becoming the new system under cryptocurrency. And that was primarily the power struggle between the SWIFT system and cryptocurrency. So for a long while, banks were actually debanking the CEOs and important individuals within the cryptocurrency system as recently as last summer, the summer of 2024, under the previous administration. However, a lot has changed. And in this new administration, the entire game is different, to the point where you've got banks hosting cryptocurrency events to include the people that even 15 months ago they were debanking actively. Now they're inviting them to these organizations and events, and the amount of cooperation and participation in the last 5 months has been absolutely astronomical. Surprise, surprise, the media told you none of this. Another big piece of this is that there's really about 3 different forms of cryptocurrency, and really all 3 will be involved to some small extent. But the key terms here are stable coins. Ripple is a stable coin. That it is one of many. There's Tether and there are others. And then there's US digital currency, which is a digital currency. And then there are cryptocurrencies like XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. Many others, in fact. And then within that scope, within that span of terms and different types of cryptocurrency, there are things like meme coins and coins that actually have some real-world application and use. I'm not going to try to break all those down for you because, again, this would be a very, very long video. But I am just going to shortcut to how this works for you. Even if you don't know anything about cryptocurrency, you've probably heard of Bitcoin, and maybe you've heard of Ethereum, and maybe a couple small ones. But for the most part, unless you are a collector of and an investor in cryptocurrency, you probably don't know much. And by the way, that's where I was 9 months ago. Now I am able to give a reasonably in-depth video presentation on this and how it can benefit you. So one of the first things you have to understand is that not every coin is created equally. They all have their own different technologies, and some are far more efficient when they're being transferred than others. The most valuable cryptocurrency coin currently is Bitcoin. It's also the oldest one. It's also the first one. Then there is Ethereum, which is a fairly fast and a fairly reliable coin in terms of its ability to transfer large amounts of data fairly efficiently. And there are many coins that are based on the Ethereum technology. However, neither one of these two coins is going to be the coin or the platform that is used in the future. In fact, that is being used right now. In fact, it is going to be the coins that I'm going to be telling you about. One of them is a stable coin and the other one is its crypto coin. Those coins are going to be the ones that are used in the global economic system that is going to be stood up in the next couple of months. That's right, next couple of months. And I'm going to get into that right now. But first, I just want to throw you a number. Currently, all of the, 4,000 plus different cryptocurrencies combined in value are between $4 and $5 trillion. Okay, and that number grows fairly substantially on a daily basis. So keep that in mind. 5 trillion. That's a lot with a T. Okay, that's a lot of money. However, it's absolutely nothing compared to what's coming. Ripple and XRP, its crypto coin. Ripple is a stable coin. A stable coin is basically a coin that has the value of approximately $1 within a few pennies. And that fluctuates on a daily, even minute by minute basis. The stable coin was something that was sort of codified, although it existed prior to this, but it was codified during the recently passed Genius Act. That's something you're going to want to take a look at. But the Genius Act basically requires stable coins to buy $1 worth of U.S. debt for every dollar's worth that they are going to bring into the market as a currency. And this is a way to, by the way, have private and public investors basically wipe out the U.S. debt, which is also something that's coming as a result of this amazing step that the banking systems are now taking. What has been agreed to and what is happening right now is that the entire global economy is going to be brought online through a number of networks, but primarily the Ripple network and its crypto coin XRP. And that is because they have already proven that they can do the job to the banks and to all of the other entities within the global financial system that are concerned whether or not this transition can actually be handled off and handed off not just precisely but perfectly. And by the way, Ripple and XRP have already proven that they can conduct these transactions very quickly, within seconds, and they charge a tiny fraction of the cost of SWIFT. So you've got seconds as opposed to days, and a fraction of a percent as opposed to 6 or more percent, and it can do it from any currency into any other currency through any other currency in seconds. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why everybody's so excited about this at the financial level, and one of the reasons why you need to get excited about it, because you have an opportunity to participate on this at the sort of like IPO level, if you will. It's not really an IPO, but you can get in early before the big dogs drop all of their money, because this hasn't quite hit the ground yet. So yes, in a few seconds or moments, I'm going to be telling you how you can get in front of this thing and possibly create a giant windfall for yourself. And you can do it with an amount of money that you would normally consider to be not substantial to you. Currently, you can buy one XRP for about $2.20 or 30 cents at the making of this video. Now, I'm going to tell you that Bitcoin started at $1, and a few months ago it peaked out at its highest value at about $125,000. So not a bad return on your investment over 15 years. Going from $1 to $125,000 in 15 years, if you spent $20, you're a couple millionaire. And you have that same opportunity right now. Now, I cannot guarantee you that XRP is going to go to a couple $100,000. All I can do is give you some numbers. Remember how I said the entire cryptocurrency market is about $5 trillion with all of the coins we're talking about? Well, imagine if not only like BlackRock brings in $10 trillion on this ledger, and the European central banks have already agreed to switch to this system, as well as all the large American banks and all the large banks in general. Even BRICS is going to go onto the Ripple ledger. There's going to be no end to the amount of money pouring into this until basically the tokenization of planet Earth. What do I mean by tokenization? Well, on any given day, the derivative loan market is roughly $450 trillion. And that fluctuates during the course of the year. Sometimes it's $1.5 quadrillion. That is an insane amount of money, of course. And all of that can be tokenized. All of the real estate, both commercial and residential, on the planet Earth, federally held lands, all these things can be tokenized. What does that mean? It means that, let's say there's a development and they're building a new mineral mine somewhere in Uzbekistan. And, it's got a lot of rare earth metals. You, as an investor, could potentially give them $5 and, get a return on investment of like 4 or 5x, right? So that you can buy, almost like buying shares, but you're buying a percentage of an investment piece, so that all forms of investment, whatever they are, a GoFundMe page, the building of a multi-unit low-income housing unit. You can buy pieces of these through tokenization. And tokenization means that they create a cryptocurrency for the purpose of raising money through investors and then returning to those investors a value in the increased value of that coin that they can cash out at a time of their deciding. You can decide when you want to cash out. So, how do you win in this? I mean, with that much money running into a market that's worth $5 trillion, and you're talking hundreds and hundreds of times that amount of money rushing in say, the next 3 to 5 years, how do you get in front of this thing so that you can win with your investment capital? Well, it's simple. You can't really do that by buying Ripple, because Ripple will never be more than a few cents off the value of $1. However, XRP will increase in value as what they call liquidity, or the value of things, currency, runs into this ledger and uses the XRP technology to transact these transactions. The transactor gains a little bit of the value of the transaction as a fee, and the holder of the coins, or the assets that do this work, XRP, gain in the sense that XRP becomes more and more valuable as these transactions take place. In addition to that, there's 2 other ways that XRP increases in value. One of them is that there's what's called a burn technology. So there's a finite amount of XRP. Every time a transaction is conducted, a little bit of that XRP, a fractional amount, a decimal point amount, is deleted on every single transaction. And another way is that there's a minimal requirement to actually conduct the transactions in an efficient manner. Think of each coin as having its own address, so its own blockchain address. And for the computer to transact a large deal, it wants to use as few coins as possible so that it doesn't have to run through all of those different calculations every single time it wants to do a transaction. And in other words, the more XRP is worth, the easier it is and the more efficient it is to conduct trades. And if you're getting paid by the percentage of the amount of the value of the trade, you basically make more money for less work by having XRP being worth more money. when you're transacting, say, a few $1 billion on an oil tanker deal, you don't want to use, tens of thousands more coins than you need or millions more coins than you need to conduct that transaction. And that truth only gets larger when you're talking the tokenization of trillions of dollars of assets. So the value of XRP is going to skyrocket in accordance with the amount of liquidity and the amount of trades that take place. And this is where you get to win. So before we go any further, I definitely want to tell you that I am not a professional investment advisor. No one pays me for my investment advice. This video is strictly for entertainment and also, to hopefully be informative. I saw the absence of some of the information I was finding in the news, and I was finding it on YouTube. I found that, people who represent large investment organizations and banks are telling us that the entire global system is changing and going on to the crypto ledger. And if you research that just a little bit further in your own, you're going to find that Ripple and XRP are really the only technologies that can do the job, that have already proven they can do the job. There are still a few small hurdles in their way, but those hurdles are being tackled as we speak. And I believe that when you look at the fact that on the 22nd of November, all currencies, all banking systems will have to be on the same 20022 standard. One of the things I want to tell you is that there's only 3 coins that currently meet that standard, and XRP is one of them. The other 2 are XLM, also called Stellar Lumens, and the other one is HBAR, also called Hedera. I'm also invested in those, and they are actually like 20 cents or less a piece right now, so you can get them for a song. With that being said, I believe XRP is going to do most of the heavy lifting, and so that's where I also think you would be well advised by your professional advisor, who you should definitely consult, to take a look at that. Okay? Now, where do you get XRP? You can get XRP on any one of a number of what's called exchanges. Okay? And exchanges are places that are sort of like where you can go to buy stocks, including a place like Robinhood, where you can go and buy cryptocurrency and stocks or ETFs. I use Robinhood. I also use Coinbase, which is probably the most common. It's probably the most widely used one, I'm guessing. I think that's the truth. And then another very popular one is called Kraken with a K. And I'm going to put links to affiliate links. These are links that if you follow them, you'll get some kind of a nice little bonus. So will I. I'm not monetized. I don't get paid. I don't have any advertisers. So, one of the ways I get to benefit from making this particular video is through those monetized links. And that's just full disclosure. If you have a problem with that, don't use them. Don't use my links. Go and find out your own thing. Go to another website. There are plenty of others. I recommend that before you do anything, you talk to your financial advisor or people you would talk to seeking financial advice, and that you do a lot of research on XRP and Ripple and the other cryptocurrencies, and specifically this transition from the current banking system to the one that is basically being stood up this year and going into the next year. I fully expect that the 85 to 90% of the global economy and all global assets will be tokenized, as I explained, will be tokenized in the next 3 to 5 years. And that should drive up the price of XRP significantly. That concludes episode 54, Global Power Shift. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, which is one way that you can help me. My next few videos are going to focus on other subjects that I think are very extremely useful to you to navigate this period of time and to insulate yourself as much as possible financially. So I'm going to be focusing on that for the next few videos. So until then, I'll see you again on episode 55, where I'm going to help you figure out how to protect your identity online and to do it with very easy and extremely powerful tools. And as always, in order for you to be completely free forever, I believe very strongly that you need to have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. So that's my final little piece of advice to you. If you haven't done that yet, I would get on it. We're getting into the pages of Revelations right now, in my opinion. And once that book closes, you want to be in the right part of the chapter.